Sarah Martinez had always been careful about her evening jogs through the quiet suburban neighborhood of San Diego. The tree-lined streets and well-lit sidewalks made her feel secure, even as darkness settled over the city. What neighbors didn't know was that the petite woman in running gear who passed their homes each night carried skills that could neutralize threats most people couldn't imagine. The 28-year-old had spent 6 years serving as one of the first female Navy SEALs, completing missions in some of the world's most dangerous locations. Her compact frame and unassuming appearance had been assets during covert operations, allowing her to blend into crowds and move undetected through hostile territories. Now, working as a private security consultant, she maintained her rigorous training routine, treating each evening run as both exercise and tactical preparation. That Tuesday evening started like any other. Sarah stretched against her apartment building's brick wall, checking her fitness tracker and planning her usual 3-mile route. The September air carried a slight chill, perfect for running. She tucked her dark hair under a baseball cap and began her steady pace down Maple Street, her breathing controlled and her senses automatically scanning her surroundings. The neighborhood was typical for this part of San Diego: modest single-family homes with small front yards, older couples walking dogs, and the occasional teenager skateboarding past. Sarah had chosen this area specifically because it felt safe and normal, a stark contrast to the high-stress environment she'd grown accustomed to during her military service. As she turned onto Pine Avenue, Sarah noticed a dark sedan parked at the corner with its engine running. The windows were tinted, making it impossible to see inside, but something about the vehicle's positioning triggered her tactical instincts. It was parked in a way that provided quick access to multiple escape routes while maintaining clear sight lines of the street intersection. She made a mental note of the license plate and continued running, but kept the car in her peripheral vision. Years of training had taught her that situational awareness wasn't paranoia, it was survival. The sedan remained stationary as she passed, but she could feel eyes tracking her movement. 3 blocks later, Sarah realized the same vehicle was now behind her, moving slowly and maintaining distance. The driver was following her route, stopping when she stopped at traffic lights and accelerating when she picked up pace. Her heart rate increased, but not from the physical exertion of running. Sarah took an unexpected right turn onto a residential side street, testing whether the vehicle would follow. Sure enough, the sedan made the same turn 30 seconds later. She was definitely being followed, and whoever was in that car was being deliberate about it. Rather than panic, Sarah's military training kicked in. She began mentally cataloging escape routes, potential weapons, and defensive positions. The quiet residential street offered limited options, but she spotted an alley between 2 houses that could provide cover if needed. She continued running at a steady pace, not wanting to alert her followers that she detected their surveillance. Through her peripheral vision, she watched the sedan maintain its distance. The situation felt calculated and professional, suggesting this wasn't a random crime of opportunity. As Sarah approached the end of the residential block, she noticed the sedan accelerating slightly. Her instincts told her that whatever was about to happen would occur within the next few minutes. The quiet street, minimal foot traffic, and approaching darkness created ideal conditions for an ambush. She reached for her phone to call for backup, but realized she'd left it at home during her rush to start her evening run. For the first time in years, Sarah felt truly isolated and vulnerable. The irony wasn't lost on her. A decorated Navy SEAL who had survived combat operations in hostile territories was now facing an unknown threat on a peaceful American street. Without any backup or communication, the sedan's engine grew louder as it approached. Sarah could see 2 silhouettes in the front seats through her peripheral vision. She maintained her running pace while calculating distances to potential cover and escape routes. Every muscle in her body was coiled and ready to react, her mind switching into tactical mode that had kept her alive during countless dangerous missions. As she neared the intersection ahead, Sarah realized she was about to discover whether her years of elite military training would prove as effective on home soil as they had been in foreign war zones. The sedan suddenly accelerated and pulled alongside Sarah, its passenger door flying open before the vehicle had completely stopped. Two men jumped out with practiced efficiency that told her immediately this was a coordinated operation, not a random street crime. The first man was tall and muscular, wearing dark clothing and moving with the fluid precision of someone with a military or law enforcement background. The second was smaller, but carried himself with the same professional demeanor. Both men positioned themselves to cut off her escape routes, demonstrating tactical awareness that made Sarah's blood run cold. "Don't run, lady. We just want to talk," the larger man called out, but his tone carried an underlying threat that contradicted his words. His right hand rested near his waistband in a way that suggested he was armed. Sarah stopped running and turned to face them, her breathing controlled despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. She quickly assessed their positioning, noting that they'd left themselves exposed to counterattack if she moved quickly enough. Their confidence suggested they viewed her as an easy target, a lone woman out for an evening jog.
"What do you want?" Sarah asked, keeping her voice steady while her mind calculated attack angles and defensive options. She shifted her weight slightly, preparing for explosive movement while appearing to comply with their demands. The smaller man pulled out a manila envelope and held it up. "We have some photos we think you'll be interested in seeing. Pictures of your apartment, your car, your daily routine. Someone's been watching you, Sarah Martinez." The use of her full name confirmed this wasn't a random encounter. Someone had researched her, planned this confrontation, and sent these men to deliver a message. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities: disgruntled former targets from her military service, competitors in the private security world, or clients who'd become unhappy with her services. "You're going to look at these photos, and then you're going to listen very carefully to what we have to say," the larger man continued, taking a step closer. "Someone wants to have a conversation with you, and they're not the type of person who accepts no for an answer." Sarah noticed the man's slight accent, Eastern European, possibly Russian or Ukrainian. Combined with their professional approach and surveillance capabilities, this suggested involvement with organized crime or foreign intelligence services. Either possibility meant she was dealing with people who wouldn't hesitate to use lethal force. "I'm not getting in any car with you," Sarah said firmly, noting that the sedan's engine was still running and a third person remained in the driver's seat. "If someone wants to talk, they can make an appointment like civilized people." The smaller man laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You don't understand the situation you're in. This isn't a request. Our employer has invested considerable time and money tracking you down, and they're not interested in your convenience." As he spoke, the larger man moved closer, now within arm's length of Sarah. She could see the outline of a pistol under his jacket and noticed he favored his left leg slightly, suggesting an old injury that could be exploited in close combat. "Last chance to cooperate voluntarily," the man said, reaching into his jacket. "Our employer prefers to handle these situations diplomatically, but they've authorized us to use alternative methods if necessary." Sarah's training kicked in as she realized the conversation was about to turn violent. She shifted her stance imperceptibly, preparing to strike while maintaining the appearance of a frightened civilian. These men had made a critical error in underestimating her capabilities. The larger man's hand emerged from his jacket, holding a black pistol, which he pointed directly at Sarah's chest. "You're coming with us right now. Walk to the car slowly, keep your hands visible, and don't try anything stupid." "I understand," Sarah said, raising her hands slightly while taking a small step forward. To the men, it appeared she was complying with their demands. In reality, she was moving into optimal striking distance while positioning herself to use their overconfidence against them. The smaller man walked toward the sedan to open the rear door, confident that his partner had the situation under control. The larger man relaxed slightly, believing that the display of the weapon had eliminated any resistance. Neither man realized they were about to discover why threatening a Navy SEAL was one of the worst tactical decisions they could have made.
Sarah took another step forward, now close enough to strike. The larger man's pistol was pointed at her chest, but his grip was casual rather than combat-ready. His attention was divided between watching her and monitoring his partner's movement toward the car. In that moment of divided attention, Sarah made her move. Years of elite training had taught her that the first few seconds of any engagement determined the outcome. These men were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Sarah's movement was explosive and precise. In one fluid motion, she grabbed the gunman's wrist with her left hand while driving her right elbow into his solar plexus. The impact drove the air from his lungs and caused him to double over, but more importantly, it angled the pistol away from her body. Before he could recover, Sarah twisted his wrist in a direction nature never intended, applying a joint lock that sent waves of excruciating pain up his arm. The weapon clattered to the pavement as his grip involuntarily released. The entire disarmament took less than 2 seconds.
The smaller man spun around at the sound of his partner's grunt of pain, his hand reaching for his own weapon, but Sarah was already moving. She drove her knee into the larger man's face as he bent forward, the impact producing a sickening crack that indicated a broken nose at minimum. Using the falling man's body as a shield, Sarah rolled behind him as the second gunman cleared his pistol from its holster. The bullet intended for her struck his partner in the shoulder instead, causing him to scream and collapse completely. Sarah scooped up the first pistol and dove behind a parked car as the second gunman fired again. The bullet shattered the vehicle's rear window, sending glass fragments raining down around her. She could hear him moving, trying to get an angle for a clear shot. "You crazy witch!" he shouted, his professional composure completely shattered. "Do you have any idea who you're messing with?" Sarah remained silent, using her ears to track his position while scanning for tactical advantages. The residential street offered limited cover, but she noticed a fire hydrant that could provide protection if she could reach it. More importantly, she could hear sirens in the distance. Someone had called the police after hearing gunshots. The driver of the sedan had exited the vehicle and was approaching from her left flank, also armed. Now she faced 2 opponents with weapons, while armed only with the pistol she'd taken from the first attacker. The tactical situation had improved, but she was still outnumbered. Sarah checked the weapon in her hands, a Glock 19 with a full magazine, professional equipment which confirmed these weren't street criminals, but trained operatives. She chambered around and prepared to engage multiple targets simultaneously. "Listen carefully," she called out, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. "I'm a former Navy SEAL with 6 years of combat experience. Your partner is bleeding and needs medical attention. Walk away now and nobody else gets hurt." The response was immediate gunfire from both remaining attackers. Bullets sparked off the car's metal body and shattered more windows. Sarah waited for a pause in their firing, then popped up and sent 2 precise shots toward the second gunman's position. Her rounds found their target. The man cried out and stumbled backward, clutching his leg. The driver immediately took cover behind the sedan, his confidence clearly shaken by watching his 2 partners get neutralized in less than a minute. "This isn't over," the driver shouted. "You have no idea what you've just started." Sarah could hear him dragging the wounded second gunman toward the car. The sirens were getting closer, and she realized the attackers were going to attempt an escape rather than continue the engagement. Part of her wanted to pursue and capture all 3 men, but the tactical situation was still too dangerous. She heard car doors slamming and the sedan's engine revving. The driver was abandoning the first gunman, who lay unconscious in a growing pool of blood from his shoulder wound and broken nose. The sound of squealing tires indicated they were fleeing the scene. Sarah remained in cover until the vehicle noise faded, then carefully approached the wounded man on the ground. He was unconscious but breathing. His shoulder wound was bleeding steadily, but not life-threatening if he received medical attention quickly. She retrieved the manila envelope the men had mentioned and quickly examined its contents. Inside were indeed surveillance photos of her apartment, her car, and her daily routines. Someone had been watching her for weeks, documenting her patterns and vulnerabilities. The final photo made her blood run cold. It showed her entering the offices of Blackwater Security Consulting, the private military company where she'd been negotiating a lucrative contract. Written on the back in red ink was a simple message: "Cancel the contract, or next time we won't just talk." The sirens were now very close, and Sarah could see flashing lights reflecting off nearby windows. She quickly photographed the message with the wounded man's phone before police arrived, knowing she'd need evidence of the threat. As the first patrol car rounded the corner, Sarah raised her hands and carefully placed the pistol on the ground. She'd won this encounter, but the message and surveillance photos made it clear this was just the beginning of a much larger conflict. Someone with significant resources and professional capabilities wanted to prevent her from taking the Blackwater contract. The question was whether they were competitors, foreign agents, or something far more dangerous.
Detective Mike Rodriguez had seen his share of street violence during 15 years with the San Diego Police Department, but the scene that greeted him on Pine Avenue was unlike anything in his experience. A lone woman in running gear had somehow disarmed and incapacitated 3 armed men using what appeared to be military-level combat techniques. Sarah sat calmly in the back of an ambulance, allowing a paramedic to clean minor cuts on her hands, while uniformed officers secured the crime scene. Her composure was remarkable for someone who just survived a violent encounter, answering questions with the precise detail of someone trained in tactical debriefing. "So you're telling me these 3 men approached you with weapons, attempted to force you into their vehicle, and you defended yourself using hand-to-hand combat training?" Rodriguez asked, reviewing his notes. "That's correct," Sarah replied. "I served 6 years as a Navy SEAL. When the first man pointed a pistol at me, I disarmed him using standard close-quarters combat techniques. The situation escalated when his partners opened fire." Rodriguez had already run Sarah's background through the police database. Her military record was impressive, but heavily classified, with most details redacted, except for her honorable discharge and commendation records. The woman sitting before him was clearly much more than she appeared. The wounded gunman had been transported to the hospital under police guard, but he'd refused to provide any information beyond demanding a lawyer. His fingerprints revealed an identity that made Rodriguez's investigation much more complicated. Viktor Kryzlov, a known associate of the Bratva, the Russian organized crime syndicate operating along the West Coast. "Miss Martinez, I need to ask you directly, is there any reason Russian criminals would want to kidnap you?" Rodriguez inquired, studying her reaction carefully. Sarah hesitated before answering. The surveillance photos and threatening message suggested this was connected to her potential contract with Blackwater, but she needed to understand the full scope of the threat before involving law enforcement. "I work as a private security consultant," she explained. "It's possible that my professional activities have attracted unwanted attention from criminal organizations, but I can't think of any specific reason for this attack." Rodriguez sensed there was more to the story, but pressing a decorated veteran who just survived an armed assault wouldn't yield results. Instead, he focused on the evidence collected from the scene. The manila envelope contained sophisticated surveillance materials that suggested professional intelligence gathering capabilities. The equipment used by the attackers was high-end, and their tactical approach indicated military or law enforcement training. This wasn't a simple criminal operation.
"We're going to need you to stay available for follow-up questions," Rodriguez said, handing Sarah his business card. "In the meantime, I'd strongly recommend taking additional security precautions. If these people targeted you once, they might try again." Sarah nodded, but she was already planning her next moves. The attack confirmed that someone viewed her potential Blackwater contract as a serious threat to their interests. She needed to understand why that contract was worth killing for. After giving her statement and being cleared by the paramedics, Sarah returned to her apartment building. She approached her front door with extreme caution, checking for signs of forced entry or surveillance devices. Her military training had taught her that after one attack, the threat level remained elevated indefinitely. Inside her apartment, Sarah immediately swept for listening devices and hidden cameras. The surveillance photos proved her home had been compromised, and she couldn't assume it was secure. After confirming no electronic surveillance was present, she began making secure phone calls. Her first call was to Commander Patricia Hayes, her former commanding officer who now worked in naval intelligence. If Russian criminals were trying to prevent her from taking private military contracts, there might be national security implications that required official attention. "Sarah, it's good to hear from you," Hayes said when the call connected, "though something tells me this isn't a social call." Sarah briefed her former commander on the evening's events, emphasizing the professional nature of the attack and the Russian connection. Hayes listened without interruption, asking pointed questions about the surveillance materials and tactical approach used by the attackers. "This sounds like it goes beyond simple criminal activity," Hayes concluded. "Russian organized crime groups don't typically target former special operations personnel unless there are larger strategic interests involved. What can you tell me about this Blackwater contract?" Sarah explained that Blackwater had approached her about leading security operations for a major energy corporation's facilities in Eastern Europe. The contract would involve protecting critical infrastructure from terrorist attacks and industrial sabotage, work that would put her in direct conflict with criminal organizations operating in the region. "That explains the Russian interest," Hayes said grimly. "Those energy facilities represent billions of dollars in revenue that flows through territories controlled by various criminal syndicates. If you successfully secure those installations, you'd be cutting off major income streams for very dangerous people." The implications became clear to Sarah. This wasn't just about one contract, it was about challenging criminal organizations that had been operating with impunity for years. The attack tonight was a warning, but if she proceeded with the Blackwater contract, the threats would escalate dramatically. "I need you to forward all the evidence to my office immediately," Hayes continued. "This might require coordinated response from multiple agencies. And Sarah, until we understand the full scope of this threat, you should consider yourself a high-value target." After ending the call, Sarah sat in her darkened apartment and considered her options. She could walk away from the Blackwater contract and probably avoid further confrontation, or she could proceed, knowing that doing so would put her in conflict with criminal organizations willing to use lethal force to protect their interests. The choice would determine not just her professional future, but potentially her survival.
The next morning brought unwelcome news. Victor Klav had died during emergency surgery at San Diego General Hospital, taking with him any chance of learning who had ordered the attack. Detective Rodriguez called Sarah personally to deliver the information and warned her that Klav's associates would likely view her responsible for his death. Sarah spent the morning at a secure facility used by former military personnel for high-risk meetings. The warehouse-like building in an industrial district offered multiple escape routes and sophisticated counter-surveillance equipment, making it ideal for sensitive discussions. At exactly 10 o'clock hours, Robert Chen, Blackwater's regional director, arrived for their scheduled meeting. Chen was a former Marine colonel with extensive experience in international security operations, and his expression suggested he understood the gravity of the situation. "Ms. Martinez, I'll be direct," Chen began, settling into a metal chair across from Sarah. "We're aware of last night's incident, and we understand if you want to withdraw from consideration for the Eastern Europe contract." Sarah studied Chen's face, looking for signs of deception or hidden agendas. The Blackwater contract was worth over $2 million annually, but the personal risk had escalated beyond anything she'd anticipated when negotiations began. "Tell me exactly what this contract involves," Sarah said. "I need to understand why Russian criminals are willing to kill to prevent me from taking it." Chen opened a classified briefing folder and spread several documents across the table. The materials revealed details about energy infrastructure in Ukraine, Romania, and Poland that were far more sensitive than Sarah had been initially told. "The facilities you'd be protecting aren't just commercial energy installations," Chen explained. "They're critical components of NATO's energy security strategy in Eastern Europe. If these facilities are compromised, it could destabilize the entire region's power grid and give Russia significant leverage over European allies." The strategic importance explained everything. Sarah wouldn't just be protecting corporate assets, she'd be safeguarding infrastructure vital to Western security interests.
Criminal organizations with ties to Russian intelligence services would view her contract as a direct threat to their operational capabilities. The previous security contractor was killed in a car bombing in Budapest 3 months ago, Chen continued. Hungarian authorities concluded it was an accident, but we believe it was a targeted assassination. You'd be walking into an active war zone where the enemy has already demonstrated willingness to use lethal force. Sarah absorbed this information while calculating the risks and potential benefits. The contract would provide financial security for years, but it would also make her a permanent target for sophisticated criminal organizations with international reach. What kind of support would Blackwater provide, she asked, focusing on practical considerations rather than emotional reactions to the threat. Chen outlined a comprehensive security package, including armed backup teams, intelligence support, and extraction capabilities if operations became compromised. The resources were impressive, but Sarah knew that even the best support couldn't eliminate all risks in hostile territory.
Her secure phone rang during the briefing. The caller ID showed Commander Hayes' office number, and Sarah answered immediately. "Sarah, we've identified the organization behind last night's attack," Hayes said without preamble. "It's the Solnskaya Brotherhood, one of the most powerful Russian crime syndicates. They control energy smuggling operations throughout Eastern Europe, and your Blackwater contract would directly threaten their revenue streams." The name sent a chill through Sarah. The Solnskaya Brotherhood wasn't just organized crime. They were a shadow intelligence service with capabilities rivaling legitimate government agencies. They had access to military-grade weapons, sophisticated surveillance technology, and corrupted officials throughout multiple countries. "There's more," Hayes continued. "Intelligence suggests they've placed a substantial bounty on your head. Taking the Blackwater contract would essentially declare war on an organization with unlimited resources and no moral constraints." Chen had obviously heard enough of the conversation to understand the implications. His expression grew increasingly grave as Hayes detailed the Brotherhood's capabilities and their history of eliminating security contractors who threatened their operations. After ending the call, Sarah sat in silence for several minutes. The choice before her was clear: accept a lucrative but potentially lethal contract, or walk away and spend the rest of her life wondering if she'd let criminals intimidate her into abandoning her principles. "I need 24 hours to make a decision," Sarah told Chen. "This goes beyond professional considerations into questions of personal survival." Chen nodded understandingly. "I'll keep the position open, but I need an answer by tomorrow evening. The facilities in Eastern Europe can't remain unprotected much longer."
As Chen gathered his materials and prepared to leave, Sarah's mind was already working through the tactical challenges she'd face if she accepted the contract. The Solnskaya Brotherhood had resources and motivation, but they'd also made a critical error. They'd underestimated her capabilities and revealed their intentions prematurely. If she decided to take the contract, Sarah knew she'd need to strike first and eliminate the threat before they could organize a more sophisticated attack. The question was whether she was prepared to wage a private war against one of the world's most dangerous criminal organizations. The answer would determine not just her future, but potentially the security of critical infrastructure that millions of people depended on for their daily lives. Sarah spent the night analyzing intelligence reports that Commander Hayes had forwarded through secure channels. The Solnskaya Brotherhood's operations were more extensive than she'd imagined, with tentacles reaching into legitimate businesses, government agencies, and military contractors throughout Europe and North America. By dawn, her decision was made. She'd spent 6 years defending American interests against foreign threats, and she wasn't about to let Russian criminals intimidate her into abandoning that mission. The Blackwater contract represented an opportunity to protect critical infrastructure while striking a significant blow against organized crime. At 0800 hours, Sarah called Robert Chen and accepted the contract. Her first deployment would begin in 2 weeks, giving her time to prepare for what would essentially be a sustained combat operation against a well-funded and highly motivated enemy. "I'm glad you decided to move forward," Chen said, relief evident in his voice. "I'll begin arranging your security team and intelligence support immediately. You'll have access to the best resources Blackwater can provide." Sarah's preparation was meticulous and comprehensive. She spent the following days acquiring specialized equipment, studying blueprints of the facilities she'd be protecting, and developing contingency plans for various attack scenarios. Her apartment was transformed into a tactical planning center with maps, communications equipment, and weapons storage. Commander Hayes provided ongoing intelligence support, sharing intercepts that revealed the Brotherhood's efforts to infiltrate her operation before it began. They'd already attempted to place assets within Blackwater's support structure and were actively recruiting local criminals in Eastern Europe to assist with planned attacks. On her final day in San Diego, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. Detective Rodriguez arrived at her apartment with news that changed everything about her understanding of the situation. "We arrested 2 more Russian operatives this morning," Rodriguez reported. "They were conducting surveillance on your building and had detailed plans for another kidnapping attempt." During questioning, one of them revealed something significant. Sarah listened intently as Rodriguez explained that the Brotherhood's interest in her went beyond the Blackwater contract. During her military service, she'd participated in covert operations that had disrupted several major criminal enterprises. The Brotherhood had been tracking her for months, waiting for an opportunity to eliminate someone they viewed as a long-term threat to their operations. "This means they'll continue targeting you even if you abandon the Blackwater contract," Rodriguez concluded. "You're facing a permanent threat that won't disappear until either you're eliminated or their organization is neutralized." The revelation actually simplified Sarah's strategic thinking. Since the Brotherhood intended to kill her regardless of her professional decisions, she might as well take the lucrative contract and use Blackwater's resources to wage war against them on favorable terms.
3 days later, Sarah boarded a military transport aircraft bound for Poland. Her security team consisted of 12 former Special Operations personnel, each with extensive experience in high-threat environments. The aircraft also carried sophisticated communications equipment, armored vehicles, and enough weapons to outfit a small army. During the 8-hour flight, Sarah studied final intelligence reports about the facilities she'd be protecting. The installations were indeed critical to European energy security, processing natural gas and oil that supplied power to millions of civilians. Any successful attack could cause widespread blackouts and economic disruption throughout the region.
Upon landing at a secure airfield outside Warsaw, Sarah was met by James Morrison, Blackwater's European Operations Director. Morrison was a former British SAS officer who'd been coordinating security for energy facilities throughout Eastern Europe for 3 years. "Welcome to the war zone," Morrison said grimly as they rode in an armored convoy toward the first facility. "The Brotherhood has escalated their activities significantly since learning about your contract. We've detected surveillance teams, intercepted communications about planned attacks, and discovered weapons caches positioned near critical infrastructure." Sarah absorbed this information while observing the Polish countryside rolling past their bulletproof windows. The landscape appeared peaceful, but she knew that appearances were deceiving in conflict zones. Enemy forces could be positioned anywhere, waiting for the right moment to strike. The first facility was a massive natural gas processing plant surrounded by multiple layers of security barriers. Sarah spent her initial week conducting comprehensive security assessments, identifying vulnerabilities, and implementing enhanced defensive measures. Her team worked around the clock to improve perimeter security and establish early warning systems. On her 8th night in Poland, the Brotherhood made their first move. Motion sensors detected multiple vehicles approaching the facility's eastern perimeter at 0245 hours. Sarah's team responded immediately, taking defensive positions while she coordinated with local police and military forces. The attack came from 3 directions simultaneously, with heavily armed teams attempting to breach the facility's security barriers using military-grade explosives. Sarah's defensive preparations proved effective as her team repelled the assault while maintaining protection of the critical infrastructure. When dawn broke over the facility, 8 attackers lay dead,
and the Brotherhood's first major operation against Sarah's contract had failed completely. But she knew this was only the beginning of what would be a prolonged conflict. The message was clear. The Russian criminals had gravely underestimated what happens when you threaten a Navy SEAL. Now they would learn why that was the worst mistake they could have made.